Thank
All right,
you.
joining me now to discuss this further is Democratic Congresswoman from Virginia, Jennifer McClellan. Thank you so much for being here. I want to pick up for what we were just talking about with Josh there, get your thoughts on that hearing tomorrow and what Harvard is doing here. It really has become the first university to stand up against the Trump administration's kind of higher education agenda.
Well, I think what we are going to see in that case is the courts really take on squarely, can the president of the United States order a higher education institution, whether public or private, to violate the First Amendment rights of their students? And that's squarely what's at issue in that case. And I think the courts are going to say, no, a president cannot do that.
I'm curious your thoughts on what other universities who are potentially concerned about this. We have seen some universities try to get together as a pack, if you will, what they should be doing right now if they, too, do not want to have to follow the Trump administration's agenda, an agenda that, you heard Caroline Leavitt there call, breaking the law if they don't follow it.
Well, and again, the law that she is talking about is Donald Trump's executive order that violates the First Amendment. And many of his executive orders themselves are not lawful, as they either violate separation of powers or they violate the First Amendment or the Fifth Amendment rights of Americans. And so, but a lot of our public universities really are being squeezed because they are being threatened by not only the president, but in some cases, Republican governors who say, if you don't do what the president says, whether his order is lawful or not, we're also going to squeeze your funding. So I think ultimately the courts are going to have to resolve this stalemate.
Yeah, and this is just one of many stalemates on various Trump administration policies that have kind of been implemented over this almost 100-day period. We're reaching that 100-day period on Wednesday. Approval ratings for this term have shown to dip pretty significantly here. You have confidence in Democrat leaders in Congress. That's at an all-time low, only 25%. How do you view the first 100 days for the president? Is there anything that you view, successfully here?
Well, I would say the president has implemented the game plan that his advisors put together for him the way that he said that he would in Project 2025. The problem for the president is the actual details of that plan are not popular with the American people. So whether it is violating the due process rights of Americans, deporting people based on allegations with no hearing, whether it is dismantling the Department of Education, cuts to the federal workforce after first traumatizing them, cuts to services to the American people that they expect, tariffs that are raising costs on everything from toys to groceries. Most Americans, and I see this in my district, and you see it reflected in the polls, are very anxious and upset by the actions that the president has taken.
Congresswoman, some of the things you're mentioning, I want to point to what's happening right now in D.C. on the steps of Capitol Hill. We know Senator Cory Booker, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries are having these conversations with people, at least a dozen or so people there, who may have some of the similar concerns that you're mentioning. You were just mentioning a moment ago. What are your thoughts on what's happening right now in Capitol Hill and what's happening, the conversation that Hakeem Jeffries and Booker are having with, people there in D.C.?
What you're seeing on the steps is what we're seeing all across the country, and I've just seen in my district during this recess, and that is people are coming out expressing their concerns, and they're anxious, and they're angry, and they want Congress to do its job to stop the president from overstepping his authority. So you pick the issue. I had 2 in-person town hall meetings. I had a televised town hall meeting. I've had tele-town halls where we've had record number of people come out and express their views because they're very concerned about what the president is doing on these and many other issues.
Congresswoman, I think that's certainly fair to say, and obviously you have people talking about that now, but in terms of what you just said, people want Congress to do its job. To do its job is to take some action. Is this too reactionary just to kind of complain about what President Trump is doing instead of really implementing strategies to negate or to come up with better solutions? Because that's something that I think is a criticism that we have not seen.
Well, the point is they want Congress as a whole to stand up to the president when he oversteps his authority, to stand up to the president when he violates people's constitutional rights. In the House, though, the Republicans have 218 votes. So far, we have not seen 3 that are willing to join with the Democrats to hold the president accountable, to have oversight hearings, to look at what he is doing in violating the law, in violating people's constitutional amendments. Most of his orders, whether it is dismantling the Department of Education, whether it is freezing funding that Congress has approved, it is up to Congress to do their job, but Republicans are the ones that are not doing their job. Democrats have filed bills to try to take care of this. We've had discharge petitions. We need 3 Republicans on the House side to join.
I certainly hear that, but I think a part of me wonders, and I'm sure someone watching this is wondering the same thing. Can we truly blame Republicans if they choose not to vote with the Democrats? What could Democrats have done better, to result in the opposite outcome obviously we had in the last election? And what are Democrats doing now to ensure that they can hold the majority and then better align with what you say people want?
When the Republicans hear from their constituents that they want them to stand up against cuts against Medicaid, we see some Republicans step forward and sign a letter that say they won't support cuts to Medicaid. So I'm not saying that Republicans necessarily need to vote with Democrats. I am saying that Republicans need to stand up and say, these tariffs are harming the American people, and you have overstepped your authority in putting them in place. The American people do not want you to take away their Social Security and their health care, Mr. President, so we're going to stop you from doing so. I am willing to work with Republicans to do that. Some are showing some signs of wanting to do that. What I'm saying is the American people want Congress to curb the excesses of the Trump administration. And so far, they haven't done that. And what Democrats are doing is making sure that the people's voices are heard. We are working with people in these court.
Speaking, I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but speaking of the people's voices, if you want to hold on for a second, I want to actually listen in to what's happening right now. If you want to listen in as well, and get your thoughts on the other side of what some of the people right now on Capitol Hill, on the steps of Capitol Hill, are saying. Take a listen.
They need to apply for just our basic necessity. Food is a basic necessity that we all deserve. We all wake up and we all ate today, and it's something that we all should be able to do automatically.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Over there. Thank you. My name is Sal Valenza. I've been providing food that is delicious and healthy to students that are hungry for over 30 years. When you think about that, students that are hungry can't learn. It's one of the things that I just saw recently. It said, hunger steals dreams, school meals bring them back. And to look at those programs and talk about taking funding away from them, to me, is just a terrible thing that people talk about. When you talk about cutting Medicaid access, people need to understand that Medicaid access being cuts access to school meals for those people as well. Because those students, when they get Medicaid, are directly certified to receive school meals. So these are things that are super important when we look at the budget and need to understand that we're affecting the health of our future. And we need to make sure that these students are heard and that we take care of them. One of the things that I talk about a lot when I talk about what we do in schools is that we tend to do things to and for kids and not with them. And I'm just going to throw this back to Senator Booker. I handed you those quotes. Those are all from students that are in your district, and these were collected from Health Corps. So we asked kids what they thought about lunch and why it was important.
Out of this, but I just wanted to give people and yourself directly, words from the people and the concerns that they're having. Some of them are mirroring what you were talking a moment ago with SNAP benefits, with Medicaid's a domino effect that happens, with that, people potentially going hungry, young students, the cost of food and groceries. You talk about that all the time when it comes to these tariffs. Certainly this is in relation to the Trump administration's agenda, its policy. Republicans have put this in place. But at some point, and there's the opposite side of this, some would say that Democrats not rising rising to the moment is a part of what led us here. How do Democrats represent the people now who have these concerns, who are sitting there, and change the tune here and change the battle and the struggle that people are going through?
Every single Democrat in the House voted against the budget plan that tells the Commerce and Energy Committee that I sit on to go find cuts that would require cuts in Medicaid. Every single Democrat in the House voted against a plan that would cut SNAP benefits, and all but a handful of Republicans voted for it. What Democrats are doing is raising the voice of the people that we are hearing, who have been calling our offices in record numbers, who have been showing up at our town halls in record numbers, and we are putting that into action. But we also are working with people who have been harmed by the Trump administration's actions to file lawsuits, because only one person can sue on behalf of Congress, and that is Mike Johnson. And he is not doing it, but we are working with people to make sure that they can sue to stop some of these actions that violate separation of powers or the Constitution.
Congresswoman, I have to let you go, but I just really quickly want to ask you, I hear you obviously saying that Democrats don't have the votes, that Republicans are not not voting maybe in the best interest of people right now. What is being done in terms of bipartisanship to kind of reach across the aisle and try to get Republicans to come towards Democrats when it comes to some of these issues, before 2026? Obviously, we know 2026 things could change, but what is happening right now for bipartisanship to make a difference in the next year or so?
We are having those conversations. And again, I point to a handful of Republicans, including 2 in Virginia, who signed on to a letter that said they would not support cuts to Medicaid. Now, where they are doing things like that, we applaud their efforts. We are having those conversations to say, where can we find common ground so that you will vote against things that harm both of our constituents? And some of that is happening. The real proof will be in budget discussions and the budget vote in a couple of weeks.
Congresswoman, I really appreciate your insight and your time here. Thank you for it. Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan, thank you so much. All right, we're going to be back after a quick break.